That used car looks spotless in the listing. Clean photos, decent price, seller says it runs great and has been well maintained. Then you show up, hand over the money, drive it home, and 2 weeks later, you're staring at a repair estimate that costs more than you paid for the vehicle. And the worst part? Every single warning sign was right there during that walkthrough. You just didn't know what you were looking at. Hit subscribe before we get into it, because this kind of information could easily save you thousands of dollars on your next used car purchase. I'm Jerry Davis, and after years around inspections, repairs, and used vehicles, I can tell you that the most expensive mistake is usually made before you ever sign anything. Sellers, private sellers, dealers, everybody, they're not always lying to you outright. Sometimes they genuinely don't know what's wrong with the car. But sometimes they absolutely do know, and they're counting on you not to notice. Either way, the money comes out of your pocket. By the end of this video, you're going to know the 9 red flags that get missed most often during a used car walkthrough, why each one matters, what it could cost you, and what to do when you spot one. We're going to go through all of it. Let's start. The first red flag is mismatched paint panels, and I cannot stress this one enough. You are standing next to the car, the sun is out, everything looks fine, but walk slowly around the entire vehicle and look at each panel side by side. The hood compared to the front fenders, the rear quarter panels compared to the trunk lid, the doors compared to the pillars beside them. If the color is even slightly different, slightly more orange, slightly more faded, slightly more glossy, that tells you one or more panels were repainted. Now, a small repaint isn't always a disaster. A door ding repair, a keyed fender, a minor parking lot scrape. Those happen. The problem is when a seller hasn't disclosed it, especially when the repaint covers multiple panels or an entire end of the vehicle. That usually points to a collision repair, and a collision repair that wasn't disclosed is a serious problem. Structural damage, improperly aligned panels, hidden framework. These things affect how the vehicle handles, how it performs in a future accident, and what it's worth at resale. A cheap paint job can look pretty convincing in photos. In person, in good light, with your eyes moving slowly across the body panels, the difference shows up. Always check. The second red flag is fresh undercoating or new spray applied to the underside of the vehicle. Here's what most drivers overlook. Sellers know that buyers sometimes get under cars and look. So a common trick is to apply a fresh coat of undercoating, rubberized spray, or even flat black paint to the entire undercarriage before the sale. What does that do? It hides rust. It hides old repairs. It hides leaking seams, rotted frame sections, and damaged floor pans. A vehicle that legitimately had undercoating applied at the factory years ago will have a worn, aged, uneven appearance to that coating. If you slide under a car and everything underneath looks uniformly fresh, evenly sprayed, and suspiciously clean compared to the age of the vehicle, that's a flag. Scrape a small spot in an inconspicuous area and see what's underneath. Rust that's been coated over is still rust. It does not stop spreading just because someone sprayed something over it. The third red flag is tires that are brand new on one axle and worn on the other. Brand new tires on a used car are often presented as a selling point, and they can be a genuine benefit. But when all 4 tires aren't matching in age and wear, that tells a story. New rear tires with worn fronts or new fronts with worn rears can indicate a suspension problem, an alignment issue, or uneven braking that was causing accelerated wear on one end of the vehicle. Sellers will sometimes replace the 2 worst tires right before listing the car, because it makes the vehicle look more presentable and avoids an obvious objection during the test drive. Don't just look at tread depth. Look at whether the tires are the same brand, the same model, and manufactured around the same date. The date code is on the sidewall, 4 digits, the last 2 are the year. Mismatched tires aren't always a deal breaker, but they should prompt you to ask why and to have the alignment and suspension checked by a trusted technician before you commit to the purchase. The fourth red flag is an overpowering air freshener smell inside the vehicle. Look, I understand why people hang an air freshener. Nobody wants their car smelling like fast food or old gym bag. But when you open the door of a used car and the smell hits you like a wall, multiple fresheners, fabric spray, strong cleaning products, that's worth paying attention to. Sellers commonly use heavy scents to mask mold, mildew, pet odor, or the smell of a vehicle that has experienced water intrusion. Water intrusion can mean a leaking sunroof drain, a damaged door seal, a flooded interior, or a vehicle that has been partially submerged. Mold in a vehicle's HVAC system, carpeting, or under the seats is a serious issue. It doesn't go away with an air freshener. It keeps growing. It affects air quality, and it is expensive to properly remediate. Pull up the carpet edges near the door sills. Check the floor under the mats. Look at the bottom of the seats for water staining or rust. Smell the air coming from the vents when the blower is running. If it smells musty the moment that fan kicks on, there's mold in that system. The fifth red flag is oil that's too clean. Now, here's one that catches people off guard, because most buyers are conditioned to worry about dirty oil. Dark, gritty oil on the dipstick signals neglect. But oil that is unusually clean, almost brand new looking, on a vehicle that supposedly has significant miles on it, should make you think. Some sellers do an oil change right before listing the car, which is perfectly reasonable. But oil that's perfectly golden and clean on a high mileage engine that hasn't recently had a service documented on the Carfax should raise a question. Why does this engine need its oil looking pristine before it goes to market? Sometimes it's fine. Other times, clean oil is covering up the fact that someone was running oil that had turned completely black, and they changed it right before showing the car, so you wouldn't see how neglected the maintenance had been. Pull the oil cap and look inside the valve cover area. If you see dark sludge, heavy carbon buildup, or a thick brown residue on the underside of the cap, that engine has not been maintained properly regardless of what the dipstick shows right now. The sixth red flag is a seller who won't let you take the car to an independent mechanic. This one drives me nuts. A private seller or a used car dealer who is confident in the condition of their vehicle has absolutely no reason to refuse a pre-purchase inspection. None. When a seller tells you it's not worth your time, or they already had it inspected, or they have another buyer coming tomorrow, so you'd better decide now. Those are pressure tactics. And pressure tactics during a used car sale almost always mean there's something the seller doesn't want a trained eye to find. A pre-purchase inspection at an independent shop typically runs somewhere in the range of $100 to $200, depending on your area. For that, a technician puts the vehicle on a lift, checks the brakes, looks at the suspension components, inspects for fluid leaks, looks at the exhaust, checks the tires, scans for trouble codes, and gives you an honest assessment of what's right and what isn't. If a seller refuses to allow that, walk away. The vehicle is not worth it, because whatever they're hiding is almost certainly going to cost you more than the money you think you're saving by skipping the inspection. The seventh red flag is inconsistent gaps between body panels. After you've looked at the paint, step back and look at how the panels fit together. The gap between the hood and the front fender should be even from front to back. The gap on the left side of the hood should closely match the gap on the right side. Same thing with the trunk lid, the doors, the front bumper cover. When gaps are uneven, one side tight, the other side wide, that points to the vehicle being put back together after a collision repair. Body panels that were realigned after an accident don't always go back together the same way they came apart. Even a skilled body shop can sometimes leave telltale signs in panel fitment. Uneven gaps are one of the most honest indicators you can find on a used vehicle, because a seller can spray paint, can vacuum carpets, can hang fresheners, but getting body gaps to lie perfectly after a collision is genuinely difficult. The eighth red flag is a vehicle history report that shows title issues, gaps in registration, or a pattern of frequent short-term ownership. Run a vehicle history report on every used car you seriously consider. Always. The report won't catch everything, but it catches a lot. What you're looking for beyond accidents is the ownership pattern. A vehicle that has been sold 3 times in 4 years, or one that sat unregistered for an extended period, or one that changed states multiple times. Each of those has a potential explanation. Some of them are benign. People relocate, life circumstances change. But a vehicle that was traded or sold repeatedly in a short period often means previous owners discovered something they didn't want to deal with and moved on. A lemon is a lemon regardless of how many people have owned it. The report also shows odometer readings at prior sales. If the mileage at a previous sale is higher than the current reading, that odometer has been tampered with. That's fraud. Walk away immediately and report it. The ninth red flag is a test drive that stays in a parking lot or stays slow and quiet. A seller who only lets you drive a car up and down a flat, low-speed parking lot is controlling what you can and can't feel from the driver's seat. A proper test drive should include highway speed acceleration, braking from speed, a stretch of rough road or surface changes, several turns at varying speeds, and time sitting with the engine at operating temperature while you listen to what the vehicle is doing. You want to feel how the transmission shifts under load. You want to hear if anything rattles, vibrates, clicks, or groans under hard acceleration or braking. You want to feel if the steering pulls to one side. You want to see if any warning lights come on once the engine warms up. Some check engine lights and warning lights are cleared right before a sale. They don't always stay off for long. A thorough test drive at real-world speeds and conditions is one of the most important diagnostic tools available to you, and it costs nothing. If a seller is steering you away from it, they know something. Now, none of these red flags automatically means a vehicle is junk. Context matters. A vehicle that shows signs of a prior repair might still be a solid purchase if the repair was done correctly, disclosed honestly, and reflected in the price. A car with new tires on one end isn't necessarily hiding a suspension failure. It might just mean the previous owner rotated their tires irregularly. The point isn't to walk away from every used car that shows any imperfection. The point is to see these things clearly, ask the right questions, factor the information into your negotiation, and never let a seller's timeline, charm, or asking price replace your own independent assessment of the vehicle. Here's a pro tip before we wrap up. Bring someone with you, not just for moral support, but because a second set of eyes catches what your eyes miss. When you're excited about a car, when the price feels right and the seller seems nice, your brain starts filtering out the things you don't want to see. A friend who isn't emotionally invested in the purchase will notice things you overlooked. And if neither of you is confident in your mechanical knowledge, that's exactly what the pre-purchase inspection is for. Pay the $150, get the inspection, and know what you're actually buying. The used car market is not designed to protect buyers. Private sellers aren't required to disclose everything they know. Used car lots have varying standards of reconditioning and varying levels of honesty. Your protection is your own preparation. Know what to look for, take your time, never feel rushed, and spend a little money on an inspection before you spend a lot of money on a car you didn't fully understand. I'm Jerry Davis. If this helped you, hit that like button so other buyers can find it. Subscribe for more practical car advice, and leave a comment below if you've ever bought a used car that turned out to be hiding something, because I guarantee you're not alone on that one. We've all been there. Let's just make sure it doesn't happen again.